The indifference curve analysis measures utility ordinally. Now, we had spoken enough about the philosophical factors in economy by using the ordinality. Why am I sticking myself to certain things on a priority basis? Consumer continues to remain a rational person, making his own choice with the relevant information that he has gathered throughout his life. An indifference curve is drawn from the indifference schedule of the customer. Good morning and welcome to the Session 3, Unit 4, Business Decision Theories, where we are going to speak about the indifference curves. Now, moving further, let's first try to understand why is this indifference curve becoming so important in the business decision theory in the area of economy altogether. Now, the indifference curve analysis measures utility ordinally. Now, that is very, very important for us. Utility ordinally, which means to say that it is a preference, it's a choice that we are trying to use. We give a priority in terms of utilizing a particular object. It explains consumer behavior in terms of his preference or rankings for the different combination of goods, say X and Y. Now, let's understand, if you have two goods, X and Y, you will not prefer both the good at the same level. Now, to give you an example here, let us say that you have two soaps with you. Now, one soap will be Lux, the other soap might be Hammam. Now, for a consumer, both of them are soap, but then he has got a particular attachment towards a product, which means to say he has a preference over a product A over product B. So what happens here is that the preference is what we want to understand. So whenever we are talking indifference curve, that means we are trying to bring in preference rather than just the numbers. I'm not just going to be happy with the factor that we are just talking about amount. I'm not just going to stop here by saying that every month I buy 6 Hammam soaps, 4 Lux soap or 5 Dove soaps. No, that's not what I'm really looking at. I am looking at my preferences. Why do I prefer Hammam over Lux, or why do I prefer Dove over Hammam? So that's where we start getting into an ordinality in terms of the indifference curve. So an indifference curve is drawn from the indifference schedule of the customer. Definitely, if you start seeing the indifference curve analysis for a particular customer, you will be completely stunned to see this factor. Why? Because you will see that whatever might be the situation, a customer prefers one variety of goods, one type of a particular product over the other. So you will see that invariably across the entire year, the customer will show a priority, will show a preference over the other product. Now, moving further, the latter shows the various combination of two commodities such that consumer is indifferent to these combination. He prefers it, he likes it, he doesn't want to give up on the combination. Now, that is very, very important. That is extremely important. Why? Because according to Watson, an indifference schedule is a list of combination of two commodities, of the list being so arranged that a consumer is indifferent to combination, preferring none of the other. Just look at the statement. A list of combination of two commodities, which means to say the list being so arranged, it is so well arranged that a consumer is indifferent to the combinations, preferring none or any of the other, which means to say that he sticks to that priority. And that's the most fantastic part of consumer behavior. Why? Because at one point you will start understanding and analyzing yourself. Why am I sticking myself to certain things on a priority basis? Why is that the consumer is not ready to give up? The prices are rising. That particular product price is continuously going up. That particular product might not be available easily. We do have a list of substitutes. We do have other options available in the market. But why am I not ready to give up on that? And that's exactly where I am really impressed upon the factor called as consumer behavior, because the consumer behavior tells you clearly he is not going to give up on his priorities. Come what may on that list, come what may be the combinations that you're going to offer, but when I like something, when I prefer something, my utility analysis sticks on to the original idea. The following is an imaginary schedule representing the factors. We are just going to use an imaginary schedule of X and Y and try to make you understand about the indifference curve. Now, how does it say? Consumers would prefer to move in a direction indicated by the arrow in the figure. So let's go with the figure. Let's see that this is the indifference curve. So the consumer will go along with this curve, IC1, indifference curve. Such a diagram is known as an indifference map. So you will get multiple indifference curves like this, IC2, IC3. So you get multiple graphs that is being shown all together, where each of the curve responds to a different schedule of the customer. So this is very, very important, because each of the curve, as you start going up the indifference curve, higher the indifference curve, higher the preference of the customer. That's what we are typically talking about. So you might get n number of indifference curves like that, which shows here that the indifference curve corresponds to a different level in the schedule. It's like a contour map. Of course, yes, you will see that showing the height of the land above the sea level, where instead of height, each indifference curve represents the level of satisfaction. So suppose I get a furthermore higher indifference curve that shows the level of satisfaction. Now, satisfaction, again, leaving economics apart for a while, satisfaction is an intangible factor. It can be experienced, it can be felt, but it cannot be counted, it cannot be touched, it cannot be something which can be written in numbers. So that's where these indifference curves matters a lot. Why? Because it is talking about satisfaction. Higher the indifference curve, higher the satisfaction level. Just look at this example for a while. Once you start trekking up a mountain, as you start climbing the mountain higher and higher, and when you reach the peak of the mountain, the satisfaction that is derived by your mind is simply priceless. Why? Because you've reached the peak. Standing there on the peak for just 1 or 2 minutes and breathing that cool air gives you a great satisfaction, a great sense of achievement. The same thing you are going to see here. What it is trying to say is that higher the indifference, higher the level of satisfaction. So what you are trying to do, you are trying to move yourself level by level, higher and higher. Automatically, you are deriving a bigger level satisfaction process altogether. So definitely, please believe on this factor. Higher the indifference, higher the level of satisfaction. Now the next thing, the indifference curve analysis retains some assumptions about the cardinal theory. Now we are coming to the cardinal, rejects others and formulas of its own. The assumptions of the cardinal theory are as following, what we are going to see. Now cardinal means that now we are coming into numbers. Now, we had spoken enough about the philosophical factors in economy by using the ordinality, where we have talked about the sensation, the satisfaction, the feelings, and the priority methods. But then, economics also relies back on numbers. They say that, sir, there is something called as cardinality, where you are going to use numbers. You're going to quantify. You're going to say that, yes, this is some value there. So let us see that the consumer acts rationally to maximize his satisfaction. That's the first thing. The next thing is that there are two goods, X and Y. The consumer possesses complete information about the prices of the goods in the market. The price of two goods are given. So when you go through these points, you are very, very clear about this factor that he is a very, very rational person altogether. Why? He uses his mind over his heart, which means to say that he calculates, he understands that this is the price that is given, these are the two goods which we are going to buy, and this is the price of the goods that are available in the market. Now, if you happen to go through the market, moment you enter a supermarket, right on the aisles of the product, the price is given. So you are not going to take anything just blindly. You are not going to accept what the shopkeeper is saying. You are going to do a preliminary research to find out what is the value of the product. So when a toothpaste is written 10 rupees, you look again and again, you have a look into the packet and you say whether it is exactly 10 rupees or after adding GST, it's going to be 11 rupees 50 paise. So what is going to come into picture is that consumer is rational. He is understanding. He understands that there is some price factor. Let's adapt that price factor and then take it forward. So that's how he goes about in terms of the pricing scenario altogether. Next, the consumer processes complete information about the prices in the goods that are being sold, and he knows the price of two goods are given. So fantastically well, what he does is that he understands the scenario. He knows very, very clearly that this is what is going on in the market. This is what things are being done in the market. So that's how things have been taken into the factor of the indifference curve analysis altogether. So that's how people are trying to understand that the indifference curve is more about a rational consumer altogether. Followed by the consumer's taste, habits, income remain the same throughout the analysis. So one assumption that we need to understand is that the consumer is not changing. As this is an assumption factor, we have to assume this very clearly that the consumer is not changing despite his income, and it remains continuously the same factor. He's not going to get a hike in his salary. He is not going to increase his income factor. Neither his taste and habits are going to change. So we look at a consumer who is completely static, who is completely remaining stagnant on the position lifelong throughout. So that's the kind of analysis that we are involved into. Followed by he prefers more of X or less of Y, or more of Y and less of X. What we are trying to assume that out of the two products, one he prefers more and the other one he prefers less. So that's the rationality on which we are moving. The next thing is that an indifference curve is negatively inclined, sloping downwards. So if you look into the graph here again, it is negatively sloping downwards and it is not going to touch the line here. Why? Because you see, as it starts going down, there's an infinitive feeling. That means it's not going to be, remaining constant. It starts coming downwards. The next thing is that an indifference curve is always convex to the origin. That's what we were trying to say. It is like this. It cannot be the other way around. You will not get a graph like this. It's always coming downward sloping. That's what we have to understand here very, very clearly. Followed by an indifference curve is a smooth and continuous, which means they are highly divisible in nature at those levels, and the satisfaction is also a change to the continuous manner. So you are able to see that the satisfaction, the levels of satisfaction, the changes happening, it happens in a continuous manner, those levels of satisfaction. So this is what we are trying to understand when we talk about the indifference curve analysis. It's a very, very interesting factor that makes us understand that consumer continues to remain a rational person, making his own choice with the relevant information that he has gathered throughout his life. Followed by the consumer arranges two goods in the scale of preference. Now we are going to talk about the scale of preference. So let me put two products here, X and Y, which means he has preference and indifference for the goods. So there are two factors. I love some goods and I'm indifferent to others. So this is where I'm trying to bring in the indifference curve analysis. I like a product because I like it, and I'm indifferent to other products because I'm not in for it. So what now happens is that the product which I like the most, whatever might be the price, whatever might be the feature, the color, contrast, whatever is that, but I stick on to that product only. I am indifferent to the other options that are available to me. That's where this curve comes in a very, very big way. He is supposed to rank them in order of preference and state that if one combination or to the other is indifference between them. So I'm going to rank it and I'm going to say that I have a product X which is on the first rank and product Y on the second rank. So for me, product X becomes my first priority, product Y becomes my next priority. So I am now making myself very, very clear on this factor that X and Y are available, but with a preference for me, with a ranking for me. That's what really matters here. Now, the next thing is that both the preference and the indifference are transitive. That means the combination A is preferable to B, B is preferable to C, and A is preferable to C. So when I have three factors A, B, and C, I can go over from here to here or from here to here. So which means I keep on moving between this factor. Similarly, if the consumer is indifferent between the combination of A and B or B and C, he is indifferent for A and C also, which means to say that one law applies for all. He is indifferent for one combination which applies to the other combinations also. That's what the indifference curve basically teaches you. Furthermore, it's an important assumption for making consistent choice on a large number of combinations. Probably this is the theory that has been applied, that has been understood by the large FMCG companies who say that most of the people prefer a combination and they stick to that combination. They don't change it so easily. See, that is the reason why when I talk about Ariel, Rin, Surf Excel and all these kind of products, people have their own priority, own thought process. Even though every day new products are being introduced in the market, people stick on to the old product because the preference levels are higher. So even though the new product might be of a lesser price with more discounts, with more offers, but still I stick to my preference. I cannot give up on that. That's why indifference curve is a very big factor that we have to understand. Now, with this, I come to the end of this particular session. I hope and believe that all the information that has been shared through this session is of a great resource and help to you. In the upcoming sessions, we shall see more about the properties of indifference curve. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.